fundamentally different is studio.
Okay.
Because you don't have that noise, you don't have that. I can't wait.
That you have talked with, interviewed like
Sir Alex Ferguson. He was fine with me. He was always fine with me. I never had a problem with Sir Alex Ferguson. And I interviewed him a few times. And the thing was, I was always straight with him. My questions were always straight. And at the same time as well, when I said something that maybe was negative, I would, because I know that he hated this. When I would say something that was maybe a negative or a negative question, I would say, look, in my opinion, or I believe, or in my mind. Whereas a lot of the press were trying to be sneaky, I would say cowardly, and say that, the fans are saying, or people are saying, or others are saying. And so Alex hated that. If you've got a point to make and you want to challenge him on it, then challenge him on it. But be straight up, be upfront about it. So I think he was fine with me. You see, the thing is, I went to university in Aberdeen and did agriculture. And obviously, Sir Alex Ferguson, one of his greatest spells as a manager, aside from Manchester United, was with Aberdeen. They won the European Cup. Yeah. So we had a little bit of a connection and a bond. The last time I was personally together with him in physically in real life was a lunch here in Dubai a number of years ago, probably 10 years ago. And we were talking about Aberdeen. So there was a connection there. Over 10 years ago, I think that was.
I'd like to ask, what is your one player interaction that you would never forget? That that he's in front of me, seeing him a bit, it made you a bit overwhelmed and a bit of that.
Overwhelmed. I mean, sort of a moment would probably be Pele, probably. But I didn't. Maybe overwhelmed. But the others, I didn't really get overwhelmed with. Anyone else that I've spoken to or worked with or interviewed, and I've interviewed pretty much everyone. I find that there's some that I find fascinating to talk to because they're very intelligent and they think deeply about the sport and the game. Sir Bobby Robson, I'd have to put at the top of my list. I was lucky enough. So his office, his office was next to mine at St James's Park Stadium. And at the end of it, so he used to spend the first half of the day at the training ground and then come to the stadium for the second half of the day in his office. And he would come in and he would sit down. We had a little 2-person sofa. And he would come in, he'd sit down and he would talk and he would talk and talk and talk. And sometimes, quite often, I'd have to go and interview him in his office. And he had a little sofa. And he'd sit down. And the funniest thing was, every time you'd go in to interview him, you'd say, right, hurry up. I haven't got much time. I've got 5 minutes. Let's get this over with. Let's get this interview done. Come on, let's go. And we'd still be there an hour later, hearing his stories about the World Cup and managing. Remember, he managed Ronaldo, the original Ronaldo. Hearing all those stories, hearing his stories about the semi-final of the World Cup in Italia 90. And I am going to say something now which I'm ashamed of. I did not appreciate those conversations at the time, that I was talking to a living legend. It was part of my job to have those conversations. I just didn't appreciate them. And now when I look back, and it's amazing because God bless his soul, Sir Bobby Robson has passed away a few years ago now. And the biggest shock, I think, pleasant surprise is probably a better word. The most pleasant surprise in my career was getting invited to his funeral service at Durham Cathedral. And I wasn't one of his players. I wasn't one of his coaches. I didn't work with him in England or the Italian 90 or anything like that. So for someone, little me, to be invited to his service, I was so surprised. I was a little bit shocked and very humbled to receive the invite in the post not long after he passed away all those years ago. So yeah.
like when we watch the post match interviews or analyzing, like we see everything being so cooperative, so like perfect together. Like, is that so in the real life, or there are some bad patches there too, like some like awkward moments too? Does that
Oh,
happen?
there's a lot of awkward moments. When I was at the BBC, I was a reporter first, where you have to be in the tunnel, you have to be pitch side, and it's all down to the mood of the manager or the player that you're interviewing. And if they've lost the game, the mood is bad. It's negative. So we call it flash interview. That's the term that's given of the area, which is usually in the tunnel. Sometimes it's pitch side, but it's usually in the tunnel or just somewhere just inside the stadium as you come off the pitch. And it's called flash interview, and it is considered in broadcast the best place to talk to a player because it's the most real and the most honest interview you'll ever get because of the emotion.
Yeah.
You know, the adrenaline's flowing through these guys. They're either super happy because they've won or they're super pissed off because they've lost. And you get the most honest response. But you also, as a reporter and as a presenter, you also get a mouthful at times. I've had a few times like, what kind of stupid fucking question is that? You know, like you do get that sometimes.
You have worked in many leagues and covered all types of many European leagues, like big leagues. So what has been your like memorable moment as of now? Most memorable.
I think I would have to say pitch side at the Camp Nou for the Classico. And the reason I say that is it was the last period where the Holy Trinity were together. Xavi, Iniesta, Messi. I mean, what was it? A year or two later, Messi was gone, Iniesta was gone, and Xavi was gone. And I have to say, I mean, in your introduction, you talked about watching me doing the Champions League, all those late nights. We've all done it together, one big family. You know, I've been in your living room with you on your sofa at 2 a.m. and 3 a.m. in the morning for Champions League games. But no, on a serious note, I'm sorry to say, because it makes me sad, I don't think we'll ever see an era of football as exciting as that was, that trinity, that holy trio, again, in certainly in my lifetime. You boys are a lot younger than me, so you might see it again. But certainly in my lifetime, you'll never see a player like Messi again, and you'll never see three players as good as those guys were together in the same team. And it makes me quite emotional and quite sad, because when I look back now, I am starting to realize as I'm getting older how lucky I was to be following the Premier League in its most amazing period with some of the most amazing players and great stories, the Cantonars and Giggs, and you know, I've come all the way through, and Thierry Henry's and of this world, but also the Champions League and also La Liga, the era of Barcelona and Messi. You know, I'm the luckiest person on the planet. I really am.
Yeah. Then being hosted by Desi Dribblers, like it's. I would like to talk about like what are your like some moments that you will cherish for the rest of your life, like the players that you have talked to, or the moments that you like still feel that happened yesterday, but that was long time ago. Like which you feel like still you are happy for the moments that you lived in.
Oh, what a fabulous question. I mean, we could be here for days. Like I said earlier, I've been so lucky in my life to be involved in some of the most momentous occasions in football. I would talk about being at the being at the Stadio dell'Alpi in Turin. And the reason that Stadio dell'Alpi in Turin, which is the home of Juventus, or was the home of Juventus, it doesn't exist anymore. It was flattened and they built a new stadium. But that was so when I was a young boy, I watched Gaza, who was a hero of mine as well, Paul Gascoigne, the famous England midfielder. I watched him burst into tears in 1990, semi-final of the World Cup, because he was given a second yellow card. A yellow card, which meant he would have missed the final. And I never believed at that time, because I never believed I'd end up in TV or football. I never believed that I'd be standing on the spot that he burst into tears interviewing Sir Bobby Robson, who was the coach of England in 1990, in my position with Newcastle United Football Club and their TV channel. So that goes down as a momentous moment. Pitch side for a Classico that I was talking about before is a momentous occasion. Being in broadcasting for a Newcastle derby, something that's close to home, Newcastle against Sunderland when they were both in the Premier League. Going to Sarajevo was wonderful experience, but really emotional. And the reason I say it was emotional was because it was just a few years after the civil war in Bosnia, and we played in the stadium, which was used as a morgue for bodies during the Civil War, and the dressing rooms were down underground. They were in the basement, and the stadium, it was against a team called Željeznica, and it was a Champions League qualifier, I think it was, in the summer. And our chaperone, who was a young man who worked in an office, 1 year, and the next year the Civil War broke out, and he's carrying an AK-47, wonderful young guy, was showing us around the city, showing us the atrocities, that happened around the city. So it was quite a humbling experience when you saw all the white crosses, So basically, if you can imagine a city, like a Western city, whereby you have all of these neighborhood parks, little recreational parks. Well, they were turned into cemeteries. And the reason that that the main stadium was a morgue was it was also the place where they buried the bodies of people who were killed in the Civil War. And the reason that they buried them underneath the football pitch in the stadium was because there were snipers on the hillsides around. And when they tried to bury the bodies in the cemeteries, the snipers would kill the mourners who were coming to bury the dead. So they did it in the stadium because obviously the stands around the pitch gave protection from the snipers. So they buried the bodies in the pitch. I mean, obviously they lifted the bodies at a later date after the war ended, but it was a humbling experience. It was an emotional experience. It sent a chill down my spine. So that I would put as a highlight. And then Salt Lake Stadium, Calcutta, for the derby, wonderful. It was before they put the seats in, so it was still, I think it was about 95 or 100,000, the electric atmosphere, Mohun Bagan, East Bengal. And then I could talk forever about pre-season tours that we did to places like Kuala Lumpur, Hong Kong. Even talking about it now, that you've asked the question, because I don't do these interviews a lot. I'm getting kind of, I'm getting a little bit emotional actually, because I don't probably reminisce enough about my experiences.
So love to hear from you like for eternity, and these things means a lot to us, as you are the one who has experienced it, and you are providing the information in such a in such a beautiful manner to all the viewers and to us. It's just it's a thank you so much for all this.
No,
And sir, I would
thank you. And we joked before about those late nights with Champions League, and it was something that myself and my executive producer Jason spent a lot of time and a lot of meetings on, because we realized, look, this is late night, it's midweek, it's a school night, it's a college night, it's a work night. How do we capture the audience and make it worthwhile watching? And we never ever wanted to do the boring. We used to have literally a sign scribbled on a piece of paper on our wall. We didn't do boring. There were good shows, there were bad shows, but we didn't do boring. And it's a bit of a shame that, nowadays I get told on a regular basis, I don't stay up anymore for the shows because they're boring. It's that's so sad. We went up to have fun and to argue, as you know, a lot of arguments, a lot of laughter, but it was, don't be boring.
Yeah, it plays such an important part in the sports. You watch the game, then you watch all that post-match things that makes you connected to the game like even more as an individual, not like you're just watching it for the players. You like feel the atmosphere. You like it's not something that you can describe by words, but of course it's a like very big thing.